Hugh Anderson was a gunfighter made famous for participating in a bloody gunfight at Hyde Park in Newton, Kansas in 1871. During the conflict, he led a cowboy faction into the fight and was one of the first to draw blood to avenge the wrongful murder of one of his closest friends. The incident began when an argument broke out between two local lawmen, Billy Bailey and Mike McCluskey. They say the argument was over local politics on Election Day, which quickly turned into a fistfight inside the Red Front Saloon. McCluskey landed a blow, knocking Bailey outside the saloon and into the street. McCluskey, seeing his downed foe, charged outwards, drew his pistol, and fired 2 shots at Bailey, hitting him with a second shot in the chest. Billy Bailey would die the next day on August 12, 1871. McCluskey fled town to avoid arrest, but was only away for a few days before returning after he received word that the shooting would most likely be ruled as self-defense, even though Bailey never produced a weapon. McCluskey claimed that he only shot Bailey because he feared for his life, having known that in previous gunfights, Bailey had killed 2 men. No charges were raised against him. Hugh Anderson was a close friend of Billy Bailey, and once he heard that he had been killed, sought revenge. On August 19, 1871, he led a group of Texans into Newton to seek out McCluskey. They found McCluskey inside the local dancing hall sitting down to gamble in a part of town called Hyde Park. Anderson and his gang confronted McCluskey, and the exchange of bitter words escalated into a violent fight. Anderson quickly drew his pistol and shot McCluskey, hitting him in the neck and upper body. McCluskey returned fire, also hitting Anderson in the neck, but despite both men being wounded, they continued to fire at each other. In the heat of the exchange, McCluskey's gun misfired, and Anderson, realizing that McCluskey's gun had jammed, walked over and fired multiple shots into his back. Accompanying McCluskey at the time was 18-year-old James Riley, who during the skirmish started to open fire at Anderson and his gang. This was Riley's first shootout, and in an adrenaline-fueled frenzy, he unleashed bullets wildly into the fray, managing to hit several of Anderson's men. Others who had no part in the squabble also took some of Riley's wild bullets, including a Santa Fe Railroad brakeman named Patrick Lee, who was shot in the stomach and died 2 days later. By the time the smoke had settled, several men lay dead or wounded. Riley, who had never been in trouble with the law and perhaps in shock from the events, simply walked out of the dance hall and was never seen again. The next day, Mike McCluskey succumbed to his wounds and died. A warrant was issued for the arrest of Hugh Anderson, but Anderson, with the help of his friends, was able to escape back to Texas before the law could catch him. By 1873, Anderson had recovered from his wounds and taken up a job as a local bartender in Medicine Lodge, Kansas. Unknown to Anderson, the brother of Mike McCluskey, Arthur McCluskey, was hunting him down to seek revenge for the murder of his brother. Arthur McCluskey eventually caught up with Hugh Anderson and challenged him to a duel. Anderson, enraged by Arthur's sudden appearance in his life and confident he could beat him, accepted his challenge. In the late afternoon, the two met in the street, lined up with their backs facing each other, and marched 20 paces apart. They then waited for a gunshot to signal the start of the duel. As the guns fired, the two quickly turned to face each other and rapidly started firing their weapons. Both Anderson and McCluskey's first shots missed, but shortly afterwards, Anderson managed to hit McCluskey, the shot striking him in the mouth and neck. As McCluskey fell to the ground from the shot, he continued to fire at Anderson and successfully hit him in the stomach. Neither of the men's wounds were fatal, so out of bullets, and with the other man still standing, the two attacked each other with their knives. It was a bloody, messy brawl of aggressive slashing and stabbing where both men received severe stabs and deep cuts to their body. Suffering from a loss of blood, McCluskey fell for a second time, effectively ending the duel. He was quickly rushed to the boarding house, but a day later, he would die from his wounds. Although some believe that Hugh Anderson also died from his wounds, there are some reports that show he survived the conflict and lived a long life. A census in 1880 lists Hugh as being a stockhand in Mullock, Texas, working on his father's ranch. Hugh Anderson, gun and knife fighter and a legend of the West, reportedly died at the age of 62 in 1914 when he was struck down by lightning.